All right, welcome back, everyone. We got a short video today. Shouldn't be too much. There should only be 2 more videos, this one included, in our integumentary system content. So let's see where we left off. Where we left off, we were talking about the hypodermis, the bottom layer of the skin. Regarding the hypodermis, we mentioned how there's a lot of fat or adipose tissue here. So regarding that adipose tissue, the big thing that I was talking about in our last bit of our material in our last video was that these fat cells, they do not multiply post-puberty. So after puberty, you have all the fat cells you will have for the rest of your life, which is pretty interesting. Those fat cells will only grow in size, be it due to body mass, like increasing body fat, or they shrink if you decrease your body fat. So it's a pretty interesting phenomenon that occurs with these cells. Okay, I really do like this picture. It's a great picture because it shows us like a 2D version of what skin looks like. A 2.5D is the best way to put it. The only thing I'm going to mention real quick, as far as skin, the one thing that does confuse some students from time to time is which gland is which. Like when you're looking in the dermis, you see the sweat gland and you see the sebaceous gland. The thing that helps me out a ton is that the sebaceous gland is right next to the hair follicle. It's literally attached to the hair follicle. So I always just think, okay, which is the gland that's connected to the hair follicle? Sebaceous, oil. Got it. Sweat gland is still in the dermis. It's still here, but it's its own thing, right? It's kind of separate. Okay. I got another video I'm going to embed. This unit had a ton of TED Ed stuff. I love TED Ed videos. I just think they do an amazing job of going over content. And this is obviously relevant to something that I have a lot of passion in, tattooing. But this goes over how tattoos work in the skin. It gets into the epidermis and the dermis and a lot of relevant stuff that we've been talking about in this unit. So I do highly suggest watching this video if you haven't yet watched it. Great video. It's about 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so it's not too long. Okay, the last bit of content for this material is diseases of the skin. There are 4 diseases that we talk about in this particular unit. For this video, the only disease that we're going to get into more detail is acne. So let's give a brief synopsis. Acne is a common and chronic disorder of the sebaceous glands. If something is a chronic disorder, that means it's long-lasting. It's going to affect the person for a long period of time. As a lot of you may know, when you get acne, it's not something that's just a one-and-done thing. Like you get acne and it's gone. No, it's typically something that comes and goes. Athlete's foot. If you're someone who's athletic, you may have dealt with athlete's foot. It doesn't happen as often anymore, but it is a fungal infection. What's unique about athlete's foot is unlike the other infections that we learn that are more bacterial or viral, a fungal infection typically attaches to your skin. The spores actually grow on your skin. The good news is we've known about these type of infections for a long time, and we can treat them pretty easily with proper medication. And we'll talk about athlete's foot and dermatitis and psoriasis more in our next video. Dermatitis, we talked about that in our very first video. We mentioned how derma is a prefix indicating skin. Itis is a suffix indicating inflammation, so it's just skin inflammation. Remember that the common name for dermatitis, not a bad idea to know this, is simply a rash. Many things can cause a rash. I get a rash every time I go home, and anytime I play with my dogs. I love my dogs, but whenever I play with my dogs, I get a slight rash on my skin, slight allergic reaction to dander, but it's nothing too serious, right? But dermatitis can range from something very minor to something a lot more serious. On the subject of a lot more serious, psoriasis. Psoriasis is a rather complex condition. It is chronic, so it's something that lasts a long time. Sometimes there are cases where people get psoriasis at a young age, like even teenage years, and they grow out of it. Other times, for most people, they get psoriasis when they're late adulthood, and they have it for the rest of their lives. The big problem with psoriasis is that cause of it can be unknown. It could be a dietary problem. It could be an environmental problem as far as like toxins in the air or solar exposure. It can be genetic. It can be a lot of things. And on top of that, there is no cure. There is no cure for psoriasis. There's a bunch of medicine and treatment to help with the symptoms of psoriasis. So the good news is if you get diagnosed with psoriasis, you can live with it relatively normal, healthy lifestyle. You just have to be making sure you're using your treatment. All right. I know this is a little grotesque, but let's talk about acne. When it comes down to acne, there's a bunch of nicknames for it. There's pimples, zits, whiteheads, blackheads, which whiteheads and blackheads, by the way, is just differentiating if the pore is open or closed. But all of that's the whole thing can be summarized as acne. This picture down here, I think, does a great job of showing us what acne actually looks like under the skin. So in this case, the follicle, right, the hair follicle, you have the sebaceous glands next to it secreting oil. When they secrete too much oil, it all plugs up. It all gets clogged. When it gets clogged with this compound called sebum. Sebum is just the fancy name for oil. It's the body's oil that we secrete. Now, the problem with all these oils stuck here is that it becomes a safe haven for bacteria. Bacteria will grow and grow and grow and grow and reproduce. Eventually, when the bacteria have encapsulated this area, they secrete their own chemicals and enzymes that are going to attract the immune system, the white blood cells. And the white blood cells are going to come to this area to attack the foreign invaders. Here's the irony of acne, right? The pimples that we see, that's inflammation. One of the first things that your body does when you're fighting infection is inflammation or swelling. Now, in most cases, that can be helpful because if you're inflaming that area, you're preventing the bacteria or the viruses to spread to other parts of the body. Sounds good. Sometimes swelling literally could be deadly. If you're swelling in the neck region, right, due to an allergic reaction, for instance, that can trap your airways and you can choke. So not good in that case. In this case, you're just swelling on the face, and that swelling is to trap the bacteria that are there. Now, the problem is, as a species, we are rather impulsive. We see something on our face, and we're not like we don't like that stuff. We're like, oh, I got to get this off me. This looks ugly, whatever the case may be, right? The problem is there's three major issues with popping pimples. Number one, if you pop a pimple, all the bacteria that was in it is now on your hands. And I don't really know how many people are washing their hands immediately after popping pimples. So whatever you're touching next, you're spreading all that bacteria. Number two, when you pop a pimple, let's say it's on your cheek, everything surrounding that cheek is now coated in bacteria. So you have a higher chance of creating more breakout. And number three, the biggest thing you have to be careful with is scar tissue. If you scratch at pimples and scratch at pimples and scratch at pimples and continuously do that process, you can disfigure your face and it can form a scar. And as in the video that I shared previously, as far as scar tissue and everything like that, we know that scars are something that are permanent. You would need surgery to help deal with scar tissue if it was that bad. So there are simpler solutions, and you don't necessarily have to go out and buy these expensive creams. And I know a lot of those creams can be helpful and do work, but there are simpler solutions to help deal with acne. Number one, arguably your easiest solution, your diet. For a couple days, try to clean up your diet. Restrict fried foods. Even if you're going to a fast food place, look at their healthier menu options. Just try to clean up your diet for 2 to 3 days. Your body's going to really appreciate it, and your skin for sure will appreciate it. Number two, get more sleep. I'm no perfect person in this case, especially with sleep or anything like that. I, on average, on my work days, get about 6 hours of sleep a night when I should be aiming more for 7 for my age range. But hey, I can manage with that. But I do know that a lot of people I teach, especially at a high school age, they're getting 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep a night. And frankly, your body just can't function as well as it should be under those conditions. So if you can get more sleep, even 30 minutes more a night will do wonders, believe me. And the last thing, this is more of a tip to help you in the moment. This isn't necessarily like a permanent fix, but if you don't have makeup to cover up acne, right, you can then use ice. First off, don't just put straight ice to your face because there's such a thing as ice burn or freezer burn. If something's so cold and it's touching your skin directly, it can burn you. It can harm you. So put the ice in a little Ziploc bag, and you're just going to dab the skin ever so softly. You're going to do that for a couple minutes. And what should happen is that the redness that you see around acne will go away. It's not as inflamed. And then the swelling, the size of the acne should be significantly smaller. You're still going to have acne. It's not a fix, but it's a solution for the moment. And at the end of the day, your body knows what it's doing. If you leave your body alone, it'll heal. The problem is we hate the way it looks. So our first intention is always just scratching at it and popping it. Okay. So that's what we're going to finish for today. Like I said, today was a little bit of a shorter video, but we have one more video after this, and that's going to be finishing up integumentary. So other than that, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.